Opening day is right around the corner, and we are so excited for Red Sox baseball. More on that on today's Locked On Red Sox.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby Maljanian, former ESPN social media associate, and also the host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I'm here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to wherever you get your podcasts, all completely for free. And as the season gets closer, I am going to be here discussing all things going on with this team as we progress through the rest of spring training. So be sure to make sure that you are subscribed and ready to tune in. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Welcome to another episode of the show where we are getting deeper and deeper into spring training. The Red Sox finally had an offseason that fans can be excited about, and there seems to be good vibes here with this Boston Red Sox team heading into the season. And what better way to talk about some of those vibes than somebody who has probably experienced some of those vibes firsthand as he just got back from spring training himself. Chad Jennings, Red Sox reporter for The Athletic. How are you doing today, Chad?
I'm okay. It was warm where I was last week, and now I'm back home and it's cold. I mean, it's better than it was, but I'm not a person who likes the cold. So I was enjoying a little bit of a break from it down in the sun.
I don't blame you at all. That Florida weather is definitely very nice, especially at this time of year when it gets so cold in New England. And I'm not a winter person either, but I keep telling myself that because we have daylight savings this weekend, that means it's going to get darker a lot later, which associates spring to me. And that means baseball. So I'm really happy about that.
Yeah, it is good. I mean, as I have a 7-year-old who's starting to get more into baseball and starting to ask more questions about it. And it's been interesting now to sort of experience it sort of through him, like kind of itching to get out. And, when's the snow going to be gone enough that we can play catch and stuff like that? It's that part's been kind of fun.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. Yeah. And hopefully he is a Red Sox fan. That would be ideal.
He's so I grew up in Missouri, so my parents still send him a lot of Cardinals gear. But he adores Connor Wong. We were watching a game last year, and Connor he got hit by a foul tip or something, right? And so he's kind of hobbling around a little bit behind the plate. Got back in, finishes the inning, came up to bat the next half inning and hit a home run. And so in my son's eyes, it was just like, what can't he do? Like, this guy is unbelievable. And so it's really neat. Like he got 2 T-shirts for Christmas. One was Shohei Ohtani and the other was Connor Wong. Like he just thinks the world of Connor. He's never met him. That's kind of neat to see like his sort of first like his guy. Connor's a good dude. So that's kind of funny. That's like he adores Connor.
I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like everybody has that player that gets them hooked. And that's so cool that's Connor Wong is that for him. I mean, Nomar was that guy for me. That was my first Red Sox jersey. So obviously then when they traded him, I was devastated and my dad had to basically sit me down because I was young and I didn't understand fully the concept of a player being traded. And my dad had to explain to me basically that players come and go and that there's going to be new players that I enjoy watching passing through.
My player when I was a kid was Willie McGee. Like I said, I grew up in Missouri, but my sister for some reason gravitated to Tommy Herr and had a similar experience. The Cardinals traded Tommy Herr, and my parents still talk about just like the devastation in our household that the second baseman had been traded and was now I think he got traded to the Phillies, I guess. I think that's right. So I understand that. And that was also, I was pretty happy this year that I get to tell him that no, Connor's still going to be the catcher. Like I was a little bit like, oh God, like what if they make a move and like bring in somebody else? But no, it's still Connor. So it's good. I get to, my
I
son can
know.
ride this out.
I know. And the catching situation obviously is something that's been a topic of discussion over the course of this offseason because, they traded Kyle Teal as part of that Garrett Crochet trade. And I was sitting there going, okay, so what does the future look like at the catching position now? And obviously the Red Sox have a lot of faith in Connor as that number one catcher because I almost thought that they were going to go out and get somebody that was maybe like a little bit of a higher quality catcher that had the major league experience that they could couple with Wong. But based on the catching moves that they made this offseason, I was like, wow, I feel like this really sends a message that they trust Connor Wong as that number one catcher.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I definitely think that happened. And also, also look around at that, how many like real standout everyday can't miss catchers really are there in the game, right? I mean, there are only a handful of teams that have one, and most teams are using some sort of they're sharing time in some way or another. But I think they like Connor. I mean, he's been a good player. He's I think probably exceeded quite a few expectations, and especially considering the circumstances through which he came into the organization, it's there's never going to be like particularly fond memories of that, and you're not going to say it played out well, but to have at least like some sort of lasting positive impact from that deal in the organization, I think is nice.
Yeah, exactly. If we can have that one piece that kind of sticks,
just something,
that works out, just to get something for, the type of player that they traded away to get him is at least, promising for the Red Sox. And I really do like Connor Wong. Obviously, his workload was increased a lot over the last couple seasons, and I think that definitely worked wonders for him in terms of his game and his productivity offensively. So I'm really excited to see what he can do at the plate in 2025 because he definitely showed a lot of offensive ability last year.
Yeah, he's going to get a lot of run. I mean, you can tell he's going to play. My colleague Jen McCaffrey wrote a story about him just a few days ago about some of the work he did to kind of prove it. He's bigger. You can tell he's stronger. I think from probably because of that, wanting to be ready to sort of carry that much of a workload.
Yeah, I'm really excited for him for sure. And obviously the backup catching situation is still to be determined for the Red Sox right now. So what are your thoughts on that based on the other players that we've seen get some reps here in spring training? Who do you think kind of is the favorite to be that backup?
I mean, I don't really have a great feel for which one of the two. I mean, they got the two kids they added this offseason, Narvaez and Sable, and they're on the 40. But what stands out is what seems to be it's a backup role. Again, I think that going in, I kind of would have expected them to maybe get somebody who's going to split time. And that's more kind of what Danny Jansen was, right? Like, and that's even with Reese McGuire as a left-handed bat, that, there were times when it made sense to play him sort of over Connor, and you could play some matchups and different things. But no, it's just like clearly it's a number two that they're just trying to choose between because the job is Connor's.
Going to get you right back to my conversation with Chad Jennings of The Athletic very soon. But first, I want to tell you a little bit about FanDuel because when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. And there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. you'll make tons of money with FanDuel, I promise. So definitely download the app today and check it out. It's definitely been intriguing to just kind of watch some of these younger players in spring training and kind of just think about what the Red Sox have readily available to them. And that also kind of goes into just their roster right now and just some of the uncertainty surrounding the infield and the outfield and who's going to play where. And particularly one of the biggest topics of conversation has been surrounding Rafael Devers and third base, whether he's going to start the season at third base or are they going to have Bregman start the season at third base. And obviously Devers hasn't been able to play in a spring training game yet. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that situation. And at the end of the day, if you think they're just going to stick Bregman at second, or do you think based on how some of these other guys continue to perform, like David Hamilton, who's been having a pretty good spring, do one of those guys get the opportunity to play second base? And then they start Bregman at third and they do some shifting with Devers.
Well, I don't think that whoever, especially in terms of like David Hamilton or Vaughn Grissom, I don't think there's anything that they do that necessarily bumps one or the other. It's it's Bregman and Devers are kind of like, they're not going to get outplayed. It's about like if they get outplayed in spring training, that doesn't matter. Like those two are, sort of at the elite level of this roster. I think it's more sort of like, how do they feel they best line up? And then how much do you worry about just frustrating Devers by asking him to be a DH at 28 years old? Like, I mean, that just doesn't happen really. I mean, Paul Muller didn't become a DH till he was like 34. Edgar Martinez was still playing third base at 28. Like, you know what I mean? Like it is, I get some of that there would be some frustration of, when Rafi says he wants to play third, that saying, well, look, I mean, Bregman's a better third baseman than he is, but it's pretty unusual to ask a kid that young, who's that set at a position, to change positions anyway, but also especially to move to a DH role where, I mean, a lot of young players they want to play, and so I don't mind Rafi feeling, I don't blame him for being a little bit miffed at that idea that they'd want to move him, but Bregman's good. The thing that stands out to me about the competition, I don't even know if you could call it competition, it's just a decision. The decision at third, right, is, Rafi Devers hasn't played yet, but I mean, he's full drills. I think it's just a matter of when he starts feeling like he's, whether it's something with his swing that he's trying to work out or whatever. Once he's ready to get in games, it looks like, I think he's going to have time to be ready to play. But if plan A is to play Bregman at second, if that's the expectation, then why isn't he doing it? Like, you know what I mean? Like Cora has talked about, well, look, here in the next few days or coming weeks, and if we need to do something different, we'll start maybe seeing about Bregman at second later. But that just sounds to me like a fallback plan, maybe at best. It just, everything to watch the way they're doing this. If you're bringing in a guy and your plan is to get him ready at a new position that he's never played, I would think you have him playing there now. He can always go back to third, right? Like Bregman going back to play third base is not going to be hard. He could spend all spring playing second base. And in the last week, if you decide, well, never mind, we'd like to play him at third, he can go. I mean, he's going to move back to third base without a problem. To me, the fact that they're not having him play second, that they're playing him at third right now, that they've told Vaughn Grissom to only play second base. Again, if your plan A is Bregman plays second, wouldn't you want Vaughn Grissom bouncing around a little bit and being that kind of right-handed utility type? I mean, you could use a right-handed. If Bregman's at second, you could use a righty at first. You could use a right-handed bat at third. You could use a right-handed bat in both corners, all places that Vaughn Grissom in theory could play, and they're having him only play second. So it just, just trying to read the tea leaves and look at what you're seeing in spring training right now, it certainly looks to me like a camp that is assuming Bregman is going to be at third base and that someone else, whether it's Vaughn or David Hamilton or Christian Campbell, is going to be at second. Again, maybe they do just feel that confident in Bregman's ability to move around that they just are going to do it for the last couple of weeks and figure that's enough. It just doesn't, having been down there and watched it, just doesn't look that way to me. It just look like everything you're seeing suggests Bregman at third. And then Rafi, I don't know how handle that. Like I said, I think he seems healthy and ready enough to do most drills and to kind of going. I don't think that anyone doubts he's going to be ready for opening day. It doesn't feel that way to me either, but it's just a matter of where do you play him.
Yeah, that's why it gets confusing, because based on the fact that they've been having Bregman play third base, that to me feels like they want to give some of these other guys like Hamilton, Grissom, and Campbell a chance to win the second base job, maybe. And like, it feels like the Red Sox feel like there's a chance that one of them could be the everyday second baseman to start the season. And if that's the case, then obviously they would have Bregman play third. And I feel like it's coming across like the Red Sox want Bregman to play third, and nobody said that directly, and that's why it's confusing. And that's why when Devers does start playing in games, I'd be interesting in seeing where they put him, because there's been a lot of question marks surrounding that situation. Why isn't Bregman getting reps at second? Is it because they want those younger players to play at second as much as possible to see if there's a chance that one of them could be the daily second baseman on the opening day roster? Like, that's what I'm wondering, if that's what's going on here, is, do they see, David Hamilton or Vaughn Grissom as being somebody who could play every day at that position, but they aren't sure yet, so they want to continue to have them play there. And that's why they haven't made a decision yet on the Devers and Bregman situation.
Yeah, I mean, Hamilton, because he hits lefty, like he can play a lot of, he could be sort of the strong side platoon or whatever, but I just tend to see him fitting more. He strikes me as more like the utility guy, right? The left-handed sort of guy who's going to back up at short and play a decent amount of second when you want to play the matchups. I guess it could be that they wanted to see if either Vaughn Grissom or Christian Campbell just took over second base and just like dominated that position and was like, takes it. And that hasn't happened. Right, neither one of them has played all that well, or at least hasn't hit that well. So maybe that's it. Maybe you prioritize that, and then you just assume that Bregman can make the shift over. Just again, to me, it just looks like maybe that is plan A, and then the shift is going to be okay. We're not sure either of those guys is ready to take it regularly, and now we need to start getting Bregman ready. But again, if the initial reporting and everything coming out when they signed Bregman was like, he's probably going to play second. And then you get to spring training and there is just nothing at all to suggest that's ever been like the primary plan. Even Cora's like initial conversations about it and answering questions about it were a little like, like maybe, like very, and like non-committal to when he's going to play second and all that. So it just feels to me like that is still a possibility. They're certainly not dismissing it. It just has not felt like being down there like that's the plan A. Like maybe they fall back on that and some things adjust, but it has felt like in spring training that plan A has been Bregman at third.
We'll be right back with Chad Jennings of The Athletic to talk about what happens with Masataka Yoshida if Alex Bregman does indeed play third base and Rafael Devers gets moved to DH. But just a quick reminder that you can subscribe to Locked On Red Sox on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, as I am available Monday through Friday to talk about all things related to this wonderful baseball team that plays in Boston. And things are about to get really exciting as we get into the season. So hopefully you tune in and that you are able to enjoy watching some games along with me here and tuning into my show. But you can also tune into Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast with host Paul Sullivan, aka Sully, who will keep you up to date on all things going on around the league. So if you want to tune into that show, just make sure you subscribe on any podcast platform. I appreciate you making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every day. That can be your second listen. So make sure you tune into that next. And if you have Devers serve as the primary DH, then what happens with Yoshida? Because everybody knows that Yoshida can't really play defense effectively in the outfield either, which is why they kind of pulled him out of that role and more into DH last year. So I'm wondering what that situation would look like and how you would handle him if you were to have Devers take over as the primary DH, unless you just kind of give that spot to both of them. But that's kind of tough for Devers because he's kind of the heart and soul of the team, and then he's losing at bats in that situation.
Yeah. I mean, Devers is going to play. Like, I mean, this would have to, you would just be to me, that would become more of like a, Yoshida play. You could play Yoshida in left, Yoshida in left, Devers or Duran in center, Abreu in right. I mean, it lines up where you could still, especially with Cedon being so versatile, like there are ways to mix and match this. The fact he can play center, the fact that Duran can play center, you can move guys around a lot and just give regular days off. But no, it's not an ideal fit. I mean, the argument I think all along was that Bregman was the bat they needed. His fit was never perfect, right? But if you need a right-handed bat, you need a right-handed bat. And they were willing to spend the money to get him, and then you just figure out a way to make that fit. And I think part of how that fits is that Yoshida probably plays less often, right? Because if he's probably not going to be the everyday DH, if Devers is your primary DH, but also when he plays, he's going to have to play in the outfield a decent amount. I just think that's going to have to be the way it fits. I was curious all winter if they could, to some extent, it could have worked better if you could have traded Casas for an arm, but that's easier said than done, right? And I don't even know if they, who knows how much exactly they want that. I mean, I think they do think Casas is going to hit. It's just if that was the priority and you were considering shifting things around, I think it's one thing to ask Devers to, maybe play third base once or twice a week and then move to first. At least he's in the field. Again, I think it's the ask to move to DH, which is the only place you have an opening. That to me, that's the bigger, the sort of more disappointing thing for your franchise player right now, right? It's you're asking him to do the ask to go to DH is a pretty big one for these guys.
Yeah, especially because you brought up a good point because he's so young still that if I were him, I would see that as kind of a slap in the face. Like, you want me to DH now at my age after I just signed this big contract extension to stay here? I would be upset too if I were him. So I can't really blame him in that regard. But one thing I have talked about on the show that I think Bregman brings that is super important is his off the field leadership and veteran experience that it seems like he's providing, at least even to some of these prospects that are hopefully going to be coming up and be superstars for this team moving forward. So just from, your experience being down there, what kind of a difference do you think that's going to make in the clubhouse, just having him, that veteran, with a lot of young players on this team?
Well, I think it's substantial, and I would imagine that was a big part of it. It's fun. I mean, it's very fun to talk about a Red Sox team that's going to have Casas at first and Campbell at second and Mayer knocking on the door at short. And here comes Roman Anthony to play now alongside Wilyer Abreu and Jarren Duran, who just had a breakout season. And it's all these like young, talented guys. And that sounds so cool and great. And then, but like, dude, you need something. Like, you need a veteran guy in there somewhere to show everybody how to do this. And to just bring a certain edge to the team. And I think Bregman does that. And that's, part of the value on having him on this short-term deal at a time when all these guys, in theory, should be coming up and you're starting to see this next wave come, depending on how long Bregman sticks around. Like, those, if he's here for all 3 years, like those 3 years could be transformative for the team in terms of some of these guys coming up. And if you have a guy like that who, has won championships and who is sort of a baseball rat, like, I think there's a lot to be said for that. And again, I mean, the sense down there right away I got from like talking to different guys is like the impact of Bregman. Like, I mean, I had one guy talk about how like Bregman wants the whole team. He wants every hitter to like wear the same thing every day and get to the cage together at the same time every day. Like, he's a very routine oriented person who has like sort of brought that into the clubhouse. And it is true. I mean, you see him walking around with groups of 2 or 3 players all the time, like just talking. And apparently like he talks hitting constantly. And I think there's value in that. He doesn't go about it. It doesn't look to me anyway like he goes about it sort of the same way that JD Martinez did. But there was an element to JD down there where like he's this video guy, right? And like he would sit down with guys and talk through swing stuff. I think Bregman's vibe is different, but there's probably value in each, right? Like, there's just some value to that guy who wants to talk ball all the time and who, has a certain expectation of himself and frankly of his teammates, of like the work that they're going to do. So yeah, I think there's value in having him there in that sense as well.
Yeah, I was so excited that he chose Boston. And I was like, this feels like that game-changing offseason move that Red Sox fans have been waiting for that could really help push this team to being a playoff team. Because even on the field, I mean, he's just been smoking baseballs during spring training so far. And that's been really promising to see as well from an offensive standpoint, what he provides with his bat, which is something we knew coming in that he was going to be valuable offensively for this team. But I just think as an overall player and what he brings, I just think it's a game changer for this team and just really a guy who knows how to win that can be a good role model for a lot of these younger players on this team. And you even talked a little bit about the prospects, Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer, Christian Campbell. What are your thoughts on the likelihood of any of them making the opening day roster? I mean, Marcelo Meyer obviously has looked pretty good this spring, but was injured and didn't play at all in AAA last year. Campbell hasn't had a good spring. And then there's Roman Anthony, and the Red Sox outfield situation obviously is really crowded right now, but we know they're going to make room for him when he comes up. Do you think they'll all likely start the season, though, in AAA?
Yeah, I think if I were to write like a roster projection right now, I would probably have all three of them in AAA. I just don't see the immediate fit for Mayer or Anthony. Campbell, it's obviously because second base either is or isn't wide open.
We don't know.
That's why I think he gets a lot of like conversation, right? The path for him, the short-term immediate path to playing time is so much clearer for him. But again, he's still a young guy. I think they absolutely believe in him. They love the way he does this and what he's done. I just still expect that he'll open in AAA, and not just because he's not hit great this spring. That still would have been sort of where I lean. But I will say, like, people in the organization in a different way, right? I mean, I don't think it's smoke that he was being considered, and I don't think it's just Cora seeing like a young talented kid and being like, give him to me. Like, I want him. Like, I think that there are lots of people in the organization who are like, this guy's good, man. And like, he's pretty much there. So I don't think that's off the table at all. I just think right now, if I had to try to guess at it, I would probably guess him in AAA. But I mean, as we said, there's a lot about that infield, particularly second base, that feels very up in the air right now. Here with whatever we have 3 or 4 weeks left.
There you have it, folks. That was Chad Jennings of The Athletic. Be sure to tune into the show on Monday, where I will bring you part 2 of my interview with him, and we'll be discussing more about this Boston Red Sox team, the fun prospects, what we have in the pitching staff, and some of the special guys who could be an absolute game changer in that regard heading into 2025. But like I always say, keep the faith, go Red Sox, and I'll catch you on the flip side.